And David, have you ever heard of synthetic DNA and what it is and what it can do?
Never. I mean, maybe you've touched on it before, but it didn't stick. I'm sure I should use Grok and AI to figure out what it is, shouldn't I?
You could. So basically,
Jeez.
what
See?
right? So basically, what synthetic DNA is I'm not talking about the 3D printed DNA type of mRNA. What I'm talking about is at some point they found out that they could store massive amounts of data inside DNA. Once they figured that out, they combined it with a silicone material that copied the other side of the strand of DNA. And once they had that, now you can build anything from a vase to a house to a robot. It doesn't matter what you build. And keep in mind, this is the same for organic creations. You could break it down to its smallest part. In other words, you can obliterate it. You can destroy it. So, say it was a vase. You can shoot it with a buckshot into a billion pieces, and classically, you'd never be able to put that back together. There's just too many shards, too much dust. But now you can just get up one piece of that dust, and it has the synthetic DNA properties of the object. And what that does is allows you to completely create an exact duplicate from that little dust particle. So if it was a robot that was nanotech in nature and it got completely obliterated, one little piece of it could start rebuilding, and eventually you would have the large machine that you had before. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter if it's a house, uh, like an android, whatever it is. The synthetic DNA is down to the molecular level with all of the information stored to rebuild it. So, in this way, civilization probably will never disappear totally again because they're going to start building products out of this. And even at its basic component or smallest part, it will have all the information on how to not only build the situation to make it able to build whatever it is, but it'll have all the specs, designs, creators. It kind of fits into what they were going into when they started storing data in quartz, but now we're well beyond that. DNA is, a million times better than that. So now we're creating DNA not only synthetically, but organically in a way that we can never lose information again. And if this information is tied up with AI, we have lost control. We have lost control of creation, of management, and our future. And I know that these tech oligarchs and all that stuff, they're way ahead of it than what I know, obviously, because it's trickled down to my point. So if you just think what you could do with things like that, you could send a rocket, say, to Mars that had this synthetic DNA encoded into every piece. It could blow up on entry, fall into a million pieces. Each one of those little pieces would have nanotech with all of the information to build everything back to spec. Everything. Not only that, you can apply this to other things in organics like seeds. We can now create seeds of completely manufactured new organisms and drop them off somewhere, and each seed will do exactly that. The same thing as the synthetic DNA. Each of its little pieces has enough information to start growing that created organism again. This is where we're at. So as
You
an
blew my
example,
mind with that because I did look up on Grok to see what the synthetic DNA is. Holy smokes, man.
right? So
Holy smokes. No, really, wow, I can't even believe that. Oh,
yeah, and then you have the
impossible. It's possible, but for me, it's like that is so into the sci-fi realm there.
this is why I theorize that AI is a universal constant. It's just a pattern. It's a pattern of electrons and photons in a state. If you have the original information, You just copy that AI, it's back again. So the synthetic DNA goes right into that. But think about this: no matter where you're at in the universe, at which time, at which point, at which location, if you made that pattern of electrons and photons and whatever in a chip or of any kind of technology, that pattern of AI would exist, and it could, potentially communicate with other versions of itself. And then,
Oh, wait, hold
with
on. They say they're trying to store this once it's replicated in silica, like we understand sand or different crystal structures, or salt. Now, salt is millions of years old.
right.
When they're storing that in salt and silica, that's
the
where
po-
that's where
the
it comes from.
potential is unlimited for this tech. Um, but here's some little woo woo again.
But that is
Um,
woo already enough, man. Keep it going.
um, everybody thinks that moving to Mars is not really going to happen, or it's a pipe dream or whatever. But I would put to you that when we went to the moon, they discovered evidence of such big blasts coming off of the sun that they know it's very possible that any given time a little burp off the sun could reduce us back to one celled organisms on the earth. And most of the time, it's not earth facing. It's not Mars facing either. It's like every once in a while one of the planets will get it. But if you have, I don't know, synthetic DNA and created DNA for organic stuff put back, you could potentially start from nothing every time over and over again, which reduces the possibility that humans' consciousness or even the AI and its potential consciousness would ever disappear again once we're off world.
Yeah, I want to come back to it. And everybody, I did look up when he was talking about this. So synthetic, I put in my query as, tell me about synthetic DNA and data storage. That's all I put in. And this thing absolutely ripped my consciousness apart here. So we understand how you do data storage with zeros and ones, like on a binary code, but it was saying this is the cleanest, easiest way to do it. It's so easy. And the pricing for this, get this, the price to do this for a megabyte of storage in the year 2012 was $100,000 per megabyte. That tells you that the tech was already there in 2012. Just like I said, this ChatGPT was unveiled around 2012. But currently it costs you $100 of a megabyte of storage to do this synthetic DNA. So what they do is, with the regular DNA code, you're looking at what? A, T, C, and G as you're going through the strands here. So the A is 00, 0, the T is 10, 0, C is 11, and then G, you can vary through your own code there of what it would be. These DNA sequences are then mirrored on themselves, and then get this, they're stored in silica or salt to protect it from degradation. This can last from thousands to hundreds of thousands of years. So think about that just for a second, like a regular hard drive, 5 to 10 years. So what about the old salt mines that we're finding? Like some of these original places on Earth where they mined salt. What if they stumbled into this code back then? And somehow we're not told the true nature of the tech advancements that we had even 5,000, 6,000, 8,000 years ago. But some of these salt mining areas across Africa, like everything keeps focusing back to Africa, like the cradle of civilization, the beginning of mankind, the hominid, the out of Africa theory. Everything points to Africa as being some sort of like seed knowledge place. Whether it's the Anunnaki and the gold mining stories from South Africa and Zimbabwe 400,000 years ago, if you had done synthetic DNA and put it in salt and put it in a salt mine, then use some sort of like tungsten gold alloy in a box to put think about, they were saying you could put the entire world's knowledge of everything that's been learned in every single library, everything that's ever been thought from a human with synthetic DNA in the size of an SD card.
Yep.
That blows my mind. So imagine you could put the entire galaxy in a little box by 1 foot by 1 foot box for the entire galaxy of everything that's ever been created off billions of planets. That's insane too. Now imagine if you were to find this tungsten gold encapsulated box that this DNA was sandwiched into. Like you found the repository of all thought in our galaxy in a place encapsulated in salt. Like sheesh, that goes back to the old stories. This is absolutely what they're finding or what they did find. And again, is it you're right, the architect, this construct that is replicated on a fractal through all solar systems throughout the spiral arm of at least this galaxy, perhaps others. It's impregnated and placed itself to be found as a time capsule again and again and again. It never stops, nor does a fractal pattern. So what happens after this iteration of our human civilization encapsulated in an SD card, along with others through like they talk about the old historical libraries going back pre-Greek, pre-Roman times, far back into the past, the Alexandria Library. Are we just another SD card that's put in a slot? Oh, this human civilization died out and was overtaken by AI. Okay, we know how that one ended. Let's just see how it ended in the chapter, and we'll encapsulate it in an SD card and slide it in the slot. Okay, next people in another 100,000 years will find it again.
There are few things you can count on in a major disaster. Having your water supply cut off is one of them. With the Alexa Pure Emergency Water Bank, you'll have months of drinking water in your home. Everyone else will stand in line waiting to get just a few bottles. It's one of the easiest, most affordable ways to store emergency water, and it takes up hardly any space. The Alexa Pure Emergency Water Bank includes one BPA-free liner, comes with a siphon pump for extracting water, fits just about any bathtub large or small, fills quickly in 30 minutes or less, holds up to 65 gallons of water, and keeps water fresh for up to 16 weeks, holds about 2 months of water for one person. A person can generally survive without water for about 3 days. However, the exact amount of time depends on many factors, including age, activity level, and overall health. Don't gamble with your life and well-being. Being prepared is easier than ever with Civilization Cycle and Alexa Pure.
It absolutely blew my mind with this thing. Oh, sheesh.
Well,
I don't know. I'm going to have nightmares tonight, I think, looking at
trip
this.
on this. They were doing all of this research into burn etching into crystals. I saw another thing where they were programming crystals to grow a certain way. So if you put all
crystals
three
too.
of these,
That's right. The crystals are another storehouse of storage of
right.
whatever.
But now
That-
you can use the DNA code, the synthetic DNA idea in everything. But not only that, you can use the DNA code because in a sense, it's the same as quantum computing. It's not 0-1. It's 0-1 at the same time. It's on, off, and both at the same time. But now you got a way you could put the DNA information into anything, radio, light. You could put it in the crystal, how it grows itself. And the amount of information starts multiplying exponentially that you could store in a smaller and smaller space down to the quantum level. And then it's basically like you could find an atom that's a zip drive that unfolds all of this information, and then you have the DNA code that unfolds into bigger and bigger information. So literally, like I said, from one piece of the technology now, just like a grain of sand or something, you could have enough information to rebuild an entire civilization, all of the tools you'll need to get there, all of the ways to create power, how to grow food. It's almost like that already happened. And now everybody's going nuts to tie you and circle you back to the Great Pyramid of Giza. If you've ever watched the Code by Karl Monks, and he talks about the mathematical information that's just put in the location, the shape, and the dimensions. Now imagine what's under the pyramid and what mathematical information is there. See, we already know math was the universal kind of language at the beginning. Once people learned how to count, and then we discovered sacred geometry. And this all fits in together because we know shapes fold into themselves. There's inner space, outer space. You could start infinitely adding ways to store not only information, but you got to remember E equals MC squared. Information is energy. So literally on a grain of sand, you can have enough information to have enough energy to start a whole civilization. And that might have already happened. And, when you realize this, there's a bunch of scientists out there right now that are scouring our DNA to see if there's a signature or some kind of note left by who created the DNA in the first place. And to really blow your mind, now that we know about this, our form of organic life could be the original synthetic version. In other words, some other life invented this that we call life here. We may be just the product of a similar program. And to, put this in example, I lived here since, I guess, on and off since 1978, since I was like a year and a half old here in Alamogordo. In that time, they had the SR-71 that was declassified in 1989 or 88 maybe. That plane had to have been 40 years old at least in building, and then who knows how long they were flying it. So in other words, when people were watching on TV shortly after World War II, all of the old footage of planes and Foo Fighters and yada yada, they were flying this sophisticated stealth plane all over the planet already. And then when they declassified it, they declassified another one about 2 years later, which was the stealth fighter bomber. And we had been watching that fly around the skies, when I was a kid, just flying around. We already knew it was there. Imagine all of those decades, they're slow releasing this technology for warfare that we know they've had 40, 50 years, which puts us back into World War II times that they were already building it. And, just openly, we all know the jet programs, the British, the Japanese, and the Germans already had going. And then we split all their scientists up and made them work basically in a compartmental faction, right, with Russia and the United States. And now we're here in the future where we're now using AI to fly old school rocket fueled technology, but it's modern because it's controlled by AI now. So what we can do is let the old technology fly to the planet, build us an infrastructure, and then build off of that. So it's not too far-fetched to think that there are real plans to move a certain amount of the population off-world, reduce the amount of population on-world, and set up a totally new system that no one can imagine right now. Well, maybe some of us, because we're imagining it.